It was sometime after midnight. The crowd had thinned, the air had cooled, and we were finally zipped inside our tiny tent. Two sweaty, exhausted best friends lying inches apart, pretending we were both asleep. And that's when he did it. Slowly, deliberately, like he knew exactly what he was doing. He reached across the sleeping bags and placed his hand on my stomach, just beneath my shirt. He didn't say a word, and I didn't stop him. We hadn't seen each other in years. And yet, nothing about this moment felt unfamiliar. His name is Liam, my best friend from college. The kind of friend who knew my favorite songs before I did, who dragged me out of more breakups than I could count, and who made late nights feel like borrowed time we never had to pay back. We were tight back then. The kind of tight that came with sleepovers, stolen swigs of vodka, arms flung over shoulders, and teasing that ran right up to the edge of flirtation, but never dared to cross it. Until we graduated, until he moved to Austin, and I stayed in New York. We texted, sometimes, but you know how that goes. Messages that start off daily become weekly, then monthly, then, hey, I just saw this and thought of you. Life fills the cracks, and people you thought would be constant just drift with the current. So when he messaged me out of the blue 4 months ago and said, hey, Summer Sol Festival, you and me, let's bring it back, I said yes without hesitation. We picked up right where we left off. Almost. The festival grounds were already pulsing when we arrived, a sea of colors, sweat, bodies, and sound. Liam was still tall, still tanned from the Texas sun, still wore his backwards cap like he owned the sky above him. But something else had changed. Something in the way he looked at me, like he was seeing me for the first time, not just remembering. I'd grown too, more confident, quieter in some ways, louder in others. I'd dated, I'd learned. But being next to him again felt like slipping back into a skin I didn't realize I missed. We spent the whole first day lost in music and laughter. We danced in the mud during a surprise downpour, drank overpriced hard seltzers, and yelled lyrics at each other over bass that shook our ribs. He touched my arm when he laughed, brushed his hand against my lower back as we squeezed through the crowd, kept pulling me close, closer than he used to. I didn't know what to make of it until the night ended, until we found ourselves inside our two-man tent, just like we had 100 times before. Only this time we weren't 18, we weren't innocent, and the air between us wasn't quite the same. We lay there in the dark, breath slowing, the muffled beat of a distant DJ thumping like a second heartbeat. You still awake? He whispered. Yeah, I said, voice quiet. A pause. Then, you look good, man. Different, but good. I turned my head toward him. I couldn't see much in the dark, but I felt him. His presence inches away, his breath against the cool air, the heat between us rising like static. Thanks, I murmured. So do you. He didn't respond, not with words, just with his hand. That slow movement across the nylon of our sleeping bags, then beneath them until I felt his fingertips press against the bare skin of my stomach. Not in a teasing way, not even sexual, yet just there, solid, intentional. I didn't breathe for a moment, and then slowly I reached over and placed my hand on top of his. We stayed like that, unmoving, unspoken. The silence between us louder than anything we'd heard all day. Something was starting, and neither of us was pretending otherwise anymore. We didn't move for a long time. Just lay there, his hand beneath my shirt, mine resting on top of his, both of us quiet in the dark, like we were afraid that speaking might break whatever was slowly unfolding between us. Outside the tent, the music had faded to a distant thump. The festival was sleeping, or at least pretending to. But inside our little nylon cocoon, something was wide awake. Liam shifted slightly, pressing a little closer. His thigh brushed mine under the sleeping bags, and his fingers began to move again. Slow, soft strokes against my stomach, like he was testing what I would let him get away with. I didn't stop him. "Do you remember that time?" he whispered, voice low and careful. "Junior year, when we shared your bed after that New Year's party?" I swallowed, surprised he brought it up. "Yeah?" "You had that stupid galaxy projector. Your room looked like a planetarium." I smiled at the memory. "You passed out in your jeans, and I couldn't feel my arm the next morning because you were on top of it." He laughed quietly, and I felt it vibrate through the space between us. "I didn't pass out," he said. I turned toward him, heart thudding. "What?" He took a deep breath. "I wasn't drunk enough to not know where I was, or whose bed I was in." The silence that followed felt like thunder. "I wanted to kiss you that night," he added, "but I didn't know if you'd freak out." I didn't say anything right away. I just slid my hand down from his and placed it over his ribs, feeling the shape of his breath. "I wanted you to," I whispered. He exhaled, hard. "Jesus," he said, "we wasted years." And then he moved, not fast, not sudden, but with a confidence that made my whole body light up. He leaned in, mouth finding mine in the dark, and just like that, we kissed. Slow, warm, surprisingly tender. It wasn't wild or frantic. It was the kind of kiss you give someone you already know, someone who's been part of your life for years, but who's never been this close. His hand slid up to my chest, fingers brushing across my collarbone, then lower. He tugged me in gently, like he wasn't just kissing me. He was asking me to finally let him. I kissed him back, deepening it, my fingers threading into his hair, pulling him closer. His mouth tasted like cinnamon gum and festival beer. His skin was warm under my palms. Everything about him felt realer than it ever had. "Is this really happening?" I asked against his lips. He pressed his forehead to mine. "It's been happening. I think we just stopped pretending." He shifted again, rolling slightly until he was on top of me, weight pressing into my hips, his hands on either side of my head, our sleeping bags pushed down to our waists. His body was solid, and the way he moved, slow, intentional, grinding just a little, made my breath catch. He kissed my neck just once and whispered, "Tell me if this is too fast." "It's not." And it wasn't. Because this wasn't some random hookup in a field. This wasn't about proximity. This was us. Years of unsaid things. Years of closeness that hadn't had a name. Years of brushing against something bigger and finally deciding to stop stepping back. We didn't go all the way. Not that night. But we didn't stop touching. His hand slid into my briefs, warm and steady, and when I gasped, he smiled into my neck. We explored each other under the thin protection of moonlight and polyester, kisses getting deeper, hands moving slower, breath tangling together. We didn't speak again until it was over, And even then, all he said was, "I should have done that a long time ago." I kissed his cheek, pulled him close, and whispered, "You just did." The tent was quiet now, the only sounds our breath slowing and the faint creak of nylon each time one of us moved. Liam was lying half on top of me, arm draped across my stomach, his hand still warm from where it had just been. We weren't talking. We weren't even trying to sleep. We were just there, tangled up, skin flushed, hearts racing. He kissed the side of my neck again, not hungrily this time, just softly, like he didn't want the moment to fade. I turned my head, met his eyes in the dark. They were closer than I expected, wide open, still full of that heat, but also something gentler, something that made my chest ache a little. "You okay?" he asked, brushing his nose against mine. "Yeah," I said, "more than okay." He smiled, then pulled the sleeping bag up around us and rested his head on my shoulder. His fingers traced small shapes on my chest, beneath the thin fabric of my shirt. "I didn't know if I should have come to this festival," he said quietly. "I almost didn't ask you." "Why not?" "Because I knew if I saw you again, I'd feel everything I've been trying to ignore." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just ran my hand down his back and let it rest there, feeling the slow rise and fall of his breath. "I used to dream about this," he added. "Not the tent part, though damn, I forgot how small these things are. But just being close like this, no tension, no guessing." "And now?" I asked. "Now I don't want to let go." His words hit me harder than I expected, because the truth was I didn't either. Not just of him, but of this feeling, this comfort, this quiet that didn't feel like silence, but like peace. I kissed his forehead and said, "We don't have to talk about what this is right now." He looked up. "No?" I shook my head. "Let's just have today. Tomorrow. Let it be what it is." He nodded slowly, then pressed a kiss to my jaw and settled back into the crook of my body. We drifted off eventually, limbs entwined, our legs tangled like we'd been sleeping together for years. Outside, the sky began to lighten. The world started to wake, but we stayed right there, still, close, breathing together, holding on to something neither of us had ever said out loud until now. And even though the tent was tiny and the ground was hard and the zipper squeaked every time we shifted, I'd never felt more comfortable anywhere in my life. I woke to sunlight streaking through the thin fabric of the tent, slicing across our sleeping bags in golden beams. My back ached, my mouth was dry, and Liam's arm was still slung lazily over my waist like it belonged there. He was snoring, barely, just enough to be audible. I didn't want to move. Not because I was sore, not because I was comfortable, but because I knew the second I sat up, reality would start creeping in again. So I lay there for a few minutes, listening to the soft sounds of the festival waking up, tents unzipping, someone laughing too loudly nearby, the rustle of sleeping bags and boots being tugged on. And then, slowly, Liam stirred beside me. He pressed his face into my shoulder, grumbled something, then stretched with a soft groan. His hand slid up my chest, fingers splayed, warm and familiar. "Morning," he mumbled, voice still rough with sleep. "Hey." He kissed my shoulder, barely more than a brush of lips, then pulled back and looked at me, eyes blinking against the light. His hair was a disaster. There was a faint crease on his cheek from the pillow. He had never looked better. "Did last night actually happen?" he asked, a little sheepish now. "Pretty sure it did," I said. "Unless we both had the same dream." He smiled. It wasn't a dream. We were quiet for a beat, not uncomfortable, just suspended. Then he said, "I wasn't just horny. I hope you know that." "I know," I said. "Neither was I." He looked relieved. Then, like the Liam I remembered, he cracked a grin and added, "You were definitely hard, though." I rolled my eyes. "Shut up." He laughed and rolled onto his back. "Seriously, though, that was the best sleep I've had in years." "You didn't sleep. You groped me half the night. And you kept pushing into me every time you thought I wasn't awake." I threw my pillow at him. He caught it, smiling like a kid. And for a second, everything felt light again, like the years hadn't passed, like we were still just two guys messing around without consequence. But this time, there was consequence. Good consequence. Real. He sat up, pulling his shirt on, and looked over at me. "So, what do we do today?" "Same thing we planned," I said. "Music, day drinking, dancing until our legs hurt." "And tonight?" I paused. "Same tent?" He nodded. "Same sleeping bag." We unzipped the tent and stepped out into the world, blinking at the brightness. People were already stumbling toward food trucks. Music drifted from a stage nearby. Somewhere in the distance, someone was laughing like they didn't have a single thing to worry about. Liam looked over at me and grabbed my hand. Not like it was a big deal, just like he wanted to. I didn't pull away. "Let's just keep it easy," he said. I nodded. "And honest. Deal." And just like that, we walked back into the crowd, fingers intertwined, skin still buzzing from the night before, hearts quietly braver than they'd been in years. The day moved fast, heat rising with the sun, the festival erupting into its full wild energy. People danced shirtless in the grass, glitter smeared across cheeks and shoulders, flags waving over heads in the crowd. The air smelled like sunscreen, sweat, weed, and fryer grease. Everything pulsed like a heartbeat. And through it all, Liam stayed close. He didn't let go of my hand when we pushed through crowds. He leaned in when he talked, mouth brushing my ear, warm breath sending goosebumps down my arms. He kept touching my back, my hip, my waist. Small gestures that didn't feel like accidents anymore. But even with all that, I could feel him pulling inward, just slightly. A hesitation under the surface. His smile would falter when he thought I wasn't looking. His eyes kept flicking to his phone, a subtle distance in his laugh. By the third band, I couldn't ignore it. We stood side by side, bodies swaying to the music, arms brushing. The sun was low now, casting everything in orange. I finally turned to him. "You okay?" He hesitated, then nodded too fast. "Yeah, just tired." I didn't buy it. "Liam?" He looked at me. And for a second, I saw everything he wasn't saying. "Can we go sit somewhere?" he asked. We moved to the edge of the field behind a line of food tents where things were quieter. He sat down in the grass, legs crossed, fingers pulling at the blades like they were a nervous habit. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't know what's wrong with me. Today's been great, perfect even. But it also scares the hell out of me. I sat beside him. Because of last night? He nodded. Because I've wanted that, you, for longer than I'll admit. And now that I have it, part of me keeps thinking I'm going to screw it up. Or that you'll wake up tomorrow and feel different. I leaned against him, shoulder to shoulder. I'm not going to. He looked over. How do you know? Because this wasn't a fluke. You and I? This has been building for years. We've always had something between us, it just never had a name before. He went quiet for a beat, then softly, what do we call it now? I turned to face him. I don't know yet, but we don't have to label it tonight, we just have to keep choosing it. He smiled, eyes softer now, the tension in his shoulders easing. That I can do. I reached out, placed my hand on his thigh, squeezing gently. Hey, I said, voice low. I've got you. You're not going to mess this up. He leaned in and kissed me. A little firmer this time, more grounded. Not a rush, not a tease, just presence. I keep thinking about last night, he said against my lips. So do I. You were so warm. You kept twitching every time I touched your stomach. I'm ticklish, I said, grinning. He laughed. You didn't seem ticklish when I had my hand down your pants. I blushed, swatted his arm. You're impossible. And you're exactly what I've been missing. We sat there in the fading light, arms looped, letting the music drift back to us like a promise. Because no matter what we called it, it was already real. The second night felt different. Not louder, though the music still pounded in the background like it was trying to outpace our hearts, but more charged, more certain. The first night had been tension, hesitation, surprise. This one felt like intention. We had dinner on a blanket near the backstage, splitting noodles from a takeout box, laughing between mouthfuls. He stole my hoodie when it got cold, even though I knew he packed his own. He said he liked how it smelled. I didn't ask questions. When we finally made it back to our tent, it was close to midnight again, the same hour as the night before. But this time we didn't pretend to be sleepy. We didn't zip ourselves in and quietly roll away from each other. This time Liam crawled into the sleeping bag first, looked at me, and held it open. Get in, he said. So I did. We lay face to face in the narrow space, our knees bumping, our breaths already mingling. He reached out and ran his hand down my arm, then slid it under my shirt again, just like he had the night before. Only this time he didn't stop at my stomach. He pulled me closer, hand gliding down the curve of my waist, dipping beneath the waistband of my shorts. His touch was slow, deliberate, steady. He kissed me at the same time, deeply, tongue brushing mine, his fingers exploring me in rhythm with our breath. I gasped, hips pressing into him, and he groaned into my mouth, like he'd been waiting all day to feel me again. You've been driving me crazy since this morning, he whispered, dragging his lips down my jaw, over my throat. Seeing you in the sun, laughing, dancing. I wanted to touch you all day. You could have, I murmured, shivering under his palm. Not like this. I slid my hand under his shirt, feeling the heat of his skin, the firm lines of his chest, and the soft line of hair running down. He was hard against me now, hips pressing forward, needy but not rushing. Our breath came faster, bodies moving in sync, like we already knew each other that way. When he tugged at my waistband, I lifted my hips to help him. When I slipped his shorts down, he let out a breath like relief. And when our skin finally touched fully, bare and aching and hot between the sleeping bag's close walls, he held my face in both hands and kissed me like the world outside had disappeared. We didn't talk much. Our bodies did. It wasn't just physical. It was something bigger. His hands moved like they were memorizing me. My mouth found places on him that made him gasp and shudder. We didn't go all the way, not yet, but we got close. Close enough that my legs trembled, close enough that he whispered my name into my neck when he came. We lay there after, tangled, skin sticky, breath shallow. And then he laughed, quiet and low. "What?" I asked, still dazed. "We're gonna need a bigger tent," he said, lips still against my cheek. I chuckled, burying my face in his chest. "You're not wrong." He held me tighter, his hand resting against the small of my back. "Don't disappear on me after this," he said softly. I looked up. "I'm not going anywhere." He smiled, kissed me again, slower now, and whispered, "Good." The next morning we didn't rush to unzip the tent. The festival outside was already stirring. Distant music from the smaller stages, tents collapsing, laughter echoing across the field. But inside our little shelter, it felt like the world had narrowed down to just the two of us. Liam was still sleeping, mouth slightly open, his bare chest rising and falling slowly beneath the mess of blankets. My arm was draped across his stomach, and I could feel the warmth of his skin, the way his body relaxed completely against mine, like this was exactly where he wanted to be. I didn't want to move, but I also didn't know what came next. Last night had been more than just physical. That much was clear. The way he'd held me after, whispered my name, touched me like I wasn't just there, but like I belonged there. It was more intimate than any hookup, more revealing than any conversation we'd ever had before. And still, part of me wondered, was it just the festival glow? The music, the closeness, the high of nostalgia and reconnection? His eyes fluttered open, catching me mid-thought. "Hey," he said, voice gravelly. "Hey," I replied, brushing a thumb along his side. He yawned, stretched, then turned toward me, cheek pressing against my arm. "I forgot how nice it feels to wake up next to someone." "You mean me?" I teased. He smiled, eyes still half shut. "I mean you." We stayed like that for a few more minutes, not talking, just breathing. But eventually we had to face it. The festival would be over by evening. The tents would come down. People would go back to their lives, their cities, their jobs, their routines. "I don't want this to end when we pack up," he said suddenly, his voice serious now. "I don't want to go back to texting you once a month and pretending we didn't sleep, wrapped around each other like it meant something." My throat tightened. "Me either?" He looked at me, really looked, and there was fear in his eyes now. Hope, too. "I've been running from this for a long time," he admitted. United States. Whatever this is. I kept telling myself it wasn't worth the risk, that maybe we were just flirty friends. But after last night, I kissed him before he could finish. Slow. Full of every word I didn't know how to say back. When we parted, I whispered, "We're not just flirty friends." He nodded, breath shaking. "Then let's stop acting like we're scared of what this could be." We spent the rest of the morning packing up, moving slower than necessary. His touches didn't stop. A hand on my waist while folding the tarp, a kiss to my cheek when I handed him his shirt. We laughed when the tent pole collapsed on his foot. He stole my sunglasses. I let him. It wasn't just about what we were anymore. It was about choosing it, even when the festival was over. Even when real life came back. Even when the music faded. By mid-afternoon, the field had transformed. What was a glowing, buzzing world of music and motion just the night before was now scattered tents, dusty footprints, crumpled wristbands, and tired people dragging coolers toward parking lots. The magic had faded, or at least shifted, but not for us. Liam and I walked side by side, duffel bags slung over our shoulders, the tent rolled and stuffed into its sleeve between us. We didn't say much. Not because there was nothing to say, but because the silence had changed. It felt easy, lived in, like something that didn't need filling anymore. At the car, we stopped. I leaned back against the door, arms crossed, trying to stall the moment I knew was coming. "I don't want this to be a goodbye," he said. "It's not," I replied quickly. He stepped in front of me, eyes searching mine. "So what do we do now?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I know I don't want to go back to pretending we're just friends who used to be close. That version of us doesn't fit anymore." He smiled at that. "Number, it really doesn't." He reached up and brushed my hair from my forehead, a gentle, familiar touch that made my chest tighten. "You ever think maybe this was supposed to happen later?" he asked. "That maybe we wouldn't have been ready for it back then?" I nodded. "Yeah, I think about that a lot. And now? I think we're ready." He leaned in and kissed me. Soft, unrushed, but sure. The kind of kiss that tasted like both a beginning and a decision. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "Come visit me," he whispered. "I will. Soon. I promise." We hugged again, tighter this time, arms locking around each other like maybe we could hold the entire weekend in that moment. And then he stepped back, opened the car door, and slid into the driver's seat. I watched him go, dust swirling behind his tires as he pulled away. But I wasn't sad, because for the first time in years, we hadn't left anything unsaid. We had shared a tent. We had shared a night. And now we were sharing something real. The music was over. But whatever this was, this us, was just beginning.